Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back once again to Red Hot Talk episode 99. We are almost reaching the 100 mark.
99.
99. Yes. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Wow.
It's almost 200 hours of us talking.
Yes.
That's incredible. Incredible.
It's incredible. I'm actually surprised that many people are still following us and listening to us talking.
It's also incredible.
Yes, also incredible. Thanks to you guys. And so it's going to be a relatively interesting talk today. I mean, obviously, it's a bit of a discussion, and we'd like to get all of your input as well about what we're about to show you, because I have downloaded essentially a spreadsheet of from CIPA, which is the Japanese Consumer Index body who measure all the businesses across any industry. But in this particular case, is the photography or camera market in particular, and showcasing the shipments and sales figures globally in 2025. And also they have a little breakdown about regions as well. So we can also talk a little bit about the European markets, the American markets, and also Asia in general. To me, it's certainly fascinating to see some of these figures. And, Rod and I just had a brief chat about some of these figures, and I think that it may be quite interesting for you guys as well. But if you have any input or whatever you feel that makes sense to you about these figures, please do share your thoughts as well, and we would like to talk about them. So without further ado, shall we make a start, Rod?
Yeah, by all means. Perhaps we can predict the future of photography based on these figures. And the world we're going to live in. I don't think so, but they are interesting, because it does seem to me they reflect changes in what people want and what they're looking for and what they're buying. So it is interesting.
And even though we see this figure, even though what you just said, Rod, about what people want, the big question is, will the manufacturer listen? Will the manufacturer react to what people want? And that's the next thing that we're going to talk about after seeing these figures. Because obviously, what we know about camera industry is R&D takes years to develop a cameras, right? So it's not an instant and overnight thing. So even they see these figures, they are aware of it, but doesn't mean that necessarily that they're going to have a brand new camera tomorrow to satisfy the demand. And it's always like a chicken and egg, right, Rod? Will it be too late for them? Will the trend just pass? And it's going to be really, really tricky.
I feel the camera makers are quite slow to react to trends. I mean, you and I spend a lot of time on YouTube. YouTube doesn't prove anything, but you and I think both have the sense there's a surge in interest in older and point and shoot cameras.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think we've seen the manufacturers reacting by reintroducing or re-mentioning their older cameras. I mean, the latest thing is the Canon PowerShot, is it GX7 Mark III
GX7.
Anniversary Edition. I don't know what's an anniversary of, 10-year-old technology maybe. But anyway, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Well, the camera is 7-year-old, just in case you don't know. It's 7 years old. And so I am actually surprised. It has come back as a new camera.
Well, the thing that worries me is that the makers are going to start, if they do start reintroducing their point-and-shoot cameras, it's always going to be the worst ones. I'm not saying the G7 IIIX is not a bad camera by any means.
Yeah.
But if Canon were to ask me, which strangely enough they haven't, I think I'd have gone for other cameras. I might have chosen a G5X Mark II maybe, because it's got the EVF. But Panasonic's doing it with, is reintroduced, what is it, the TZ99?
The TZ90, yeah. I think FZ as well, right? Or something, yeah.
There's an FZ, both of them.
Yeah.
Like small sensor, old tech, not terribly desirable cameras, but...
Yeah,
not
very far away from where you can find from junk shops, right? For $20, but having said that, if you can still manage to find them in $20, you'll be very, very lucky these days. Even second-hand shops and charity shops has put up the price of a point and shoot, unfortunately.
yeah. So maybe that'll be a passing phase, but I think you've done a bit of a deep dive into the figures, and I think you've seen a couple of things, Jamie, that perhaps you might like to
Yep.
share
Okay.
with
So
us.
let's share with you guys now the numbers.
I
So
mean,
here it is.
we all love a spreadsheet, right?
We do. We like numbers, right? Everyone loves to study the numbers. Right. Okay. It's certainly very interesting. So I'm going to just scroll up a little bit first, and so you can see that production shipment of digital still cameras January to December 2025. So we are talking about last year because we are still in February. We're not going to including in the last couple of years or any new product that has come out this year. But it's very interesting because first of all, we look at the top section where it says digital still camera in total. You can see that year-on-year production has gone up by 9%. 109.1%, it means it's gone up by 9%. Yeah, just minus that 100 will give you the increase. That's how Japanese put in their spreadsheets. But in terms of the sales turnover in money-wise, it's gone up by 8%. So I just want you to understand how you read this chart here. So you can see that each row has our main category, like digital still camera total. It has two rows, one at the top, one at the bottom. The top is the unit, the number of units for shipments. And the bottom bit is the sales, so basically the cost of it or the turnover of it, the RRP, so to speak. So it come out as yen, so it's obviously from Japan. So if you look at the increase, the unit shipment has increased by 9%, and the total turnover, in terms of shipment in sales money-wise, it's gone up only by 8%, slightly lower than the actual increase in total unit. And what does it tell you then, Rod?
As Panasonic cutting its prices. To me it seems a fairly small, subtle difference. It does show that the margins on this camera gear are perhaps slightly lower than they were, but I'm sure the camera makers are still making money. But I think all the camera makers are trying to find ways to get us to keep buying cameras when it's becoming harder for people to justify. So maybe we're seeing a bit of that. But some brands reduce prices more than others. I mean, I don't know how many Lumix S9s the Panasonic has sold, but if they sold a lot, the savings on that particular camera are pretty massive. So I wasn't entirely joking when I said maybe it's Panasonic. Reducing its prices.
Well, there are a few things here, but certainly in terms of the Lumix S9, we have seen the street price has come down significantly compared to when it was first launched. And you can get a body only for I think $899. And I think it's very, very cheap for a full frame camera with that kind of spec, and so you're gonna have to kind of take that into account as well. But I think overall, the reason why the margin has come down, or the number has come down, is I think largely because now manufacturers has employed another tactics by keeping a lot of the older models in the catalog, continue to sell it as a secondary models. So they have the brand new flashy model came out, and they was keep the previous two generations continue to be selling on side by side with the new model. The lower one, obviously, they're gonna have to sell it a lot cheaper compared to the brand new model. So they may continue to sell those, and that's why those margin has come down as well, because the overall margin for these cameras will be a lot lower for that. Or the newer one, obviously, because the R&D cost they have to recover, and they just have a 2 to 3 years windows to recover the costs. So that means that you have to calculate all of them together to get these kind of figures. But it's not surprising that the total turnover or the sales number has come down a little bit. But in terms of unit sales, it's gone up. So it's at least some positive signs that we see that the market is increasing.
I suppose what we'd say is that the unit sales have gone up, but the revenue has gone up by slightly less.
Yes.
Because the revenue's gone up a little bit, but not quite as much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It does seem a fairly small difference to me, but I'm quite encouraged that the numbers are up year on year.
Yeah. And then obviously we talked about the production unit, but you can see it on the side. I'm going to draw a little circle here. You can see that the actual shipment is actually more than the production. So that means that a lot of the old stock is being sold off, I believe.
Yeah, they found your cameras at the back of the warehouse.
But he's talking about a fairly big sum there. 300,000 units being shipped. And because they only produced 9.1 million, and then they shipped over almost 9.4. 9.5 million units, so there's quite a bit of overstock there.
I guess so. I guess though that they just to make sure the economies of scale actually do work. When they forecast sales for a particular camera, they're going to make a lot of them because it's cheaper to make a lot in one go than it is to make a smaller number and just make more when they need them. I hope it's a shame Fujifilm isn't listening. If they made a few more right at the start, we might not have to wait so much. But I guess every company has its own strategy.
They do, of course, yes.
I have the feeling that Sony and Panasonic and probably Canon make a lot right up front, and then just forecast sales into the future and plan the marketing and price reductions somewhere in advance. I'm sure they don't. Make another 500 just because they've sold out. So I think we're probably seeing cameras that were made 2 or 3 years ago, when the makers are probably quite confident they can sell them. But it is interesting that, as you point out, though, that they've sold more than they've made.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
I'm sure there is still plenty of stocks, but
So that's certainly very interesting. But now we've just moved along to the shipment to Japan. So this is domestic sale actually gone down. If you look at this domestic sales, it's come down ever so slightly. Not a lot, but it has come down. But on the other hand, the biggest increase is basically anything but Japan. So they think that they export out. So it's gone out by actually almost 13%. So that is a very encouraging sign. I mean, from at least for the Japanese market, Japanese camera makers' point of view, it's certainly very encouraging because they're exporting more. And I mean, I'm still a little bit. I just want to be a little bit more reserved here in terms of these numbers, because obviously a lot of these increases could potentially be down to the tariff issues in the US, and people may have buy more than they needed before the tariff, became in effect.
I think as well, if we look at those figures for Japan, it could be that in a domestic market, the manufacturers have just made slightly different decisions, because even though the numbers are slightly down, the value has gone up slightly year on year. So if you want to read any significance into that, you could say that the prices are strong, but people aren't buying quite as many. If you wanted to read anything into that. So I don't know. I wonder if this is just a small fluctuation that the planners will have to take into account.
Of course. But one thing I do notice, having been to Japan twice and also observing the market in general, because I do subscribe to a newsletter of Yodobashi and all the other companies in Japan, what I always find that they don't usually have big sales and cashback schemes like what we do have in the Europe and US. We don't have they don't have Black Friday sales, Christmas sales. The kind of like almost too good to be true kind of deals going. Like give you free lenses, or give you 50% or whatever, £500 cashback in big lenses. I don't see that happening in Japan. They seem to hold the prices fairly well over there. Occasionally, big retailer will give you some sort of cashback deal, but that's only for themselves. If you buy this, they'll give you £100 equivalent or store voucher for use other things and things. So I think that's probably why the revenue kind of sort of maintain in that kind of level. But it's certainly interesting to see the differences between the markets here in Japan internally and also externally for the rest of the world.
Somebody who lives in the States will have to tell me what their tariff situation is at the moment, because it's quite hard for somebody in other territories to understand what's going on day by day. So I don't know what the tariffs are. I mean, prices in B&H don't seem elevated, because I do keep an eye on US pricing. So I don't know what level the tariffs are at now and how much impact it's having. It's complicated as well, I know, in the US, because you pay different taxes according to which state you're in, which quite hard for anyone elsewhere to get their heads around. But it's interesting. But maybe there'll be some data low down in this chart that tells us, breaks down the sales really.
Yes. Well,
compared to other territories.
There are some breakdown later on in this chart here to show you by regions. Obviously, group them into Europe, America, Asia, China, because China is now basically as big as America. Now, if you look at the numbers, you will see in just a minute. So it's very interesting to see. But now let's move along, because now we've gone through the global numbers, which is, at least to me, is still an encouraging signs, because we've been talking about the photography market shrinking and the camera markets, in terms of sales, were shrinking. But now we can see that it's increasing. But like I said, I don't want to give it too much hope yet. I want to see what this 2026 is doing before I can draw some more solid conclusion. Because like I said, because of the tariff situation, there could be a false sign of people just buying a whole load as much as they can before they have to pay more to buy them. So that's that as well. So I'm not entirely certain, about the whole situation just yet, but any increase is going to increase, so I'm still quite happy about to see.
so if our US audience could excuse our ignorance on current tariff levels, we'd be very grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do share your comments as well. So now we're going to move down the chat a little bit, and we can see now by type. So that's the interesting part to me, because now we can see what we would say the trend. So they got if you look at the left side, the column here, you probably can see my cursor hovering around there, so I'm just gonna maybe draw a little bit here, so you can see this bit here. We got a camera with built-in lens, essentially one with a fixed lens, point and shoot cameras, X100, all these that based without changeable lens category, right?
Just be clear, Jimmy. I mean, you say point and shoot.
Yep.
Is that quite fair? Because you probably wouldn't call a Leica Q a point and shoot, because in my circles, point and shoot is an insult. So I don't know if we could call them something else. Compact cameras, maybe.
Compact.
I don't know what.
Compact camera, but then again, there are also compact camera with interchangeable lens as well.
don't go to the Leica factory in Wetzlar and ask to see their point and shoot cameras. They'll throw you out.
Well, I mean, I guess if you go to the Leica group, they will probably tell you that, well, Leica Q is a point and shoot. Look, the proper people would use the M and SL.
And Leica would never use that phrase. That phrase would not be uttered, I promise you.
Or the deluxe.
But we know what you mean. When you're saying point and shoot, I think we know what you mean. You're describing cameras with interchangeable lenses.
That's right. So with any fixed lens, it could be a zoom lens, it could be a prime lens. So basically, you can't change them. So camera with a built-in lens.
It's not a slur on the type of camera or the people who use them. It's just a description.
Absolutely. So you can see that. So we got 4 types there. We've got the camera with built-in lens. Now we've got the 3 types actually. Beg my pardon. So the camera with interchangeable lens, obviously within that category, we've got 2 subcategories. One with the SLR, still exists, by the way. People still buy them. And then we've got the mirrorless. So literally everything else nowadays. So let's dive in a little bit about these figures into the global sales. So I'm not going to look at the production unit now. I'm just looking at the sales, because you're just looking at these number here. I'm just going to highlight it by drawing this big circle around here. Okay. Right. You can see the changes. I mean, in terms of year-on-year increase for the camera with built-in lens. In terms of sales, units shipment is gone up by almost 30%. Huge. Revenue jumped by almost 50%. So like that is incredible. That is something that any camera makers would like to see.
People are buying more and they cost more. That's what they like.
That's exactly what they want. And on the other hand, if you look at the camera with interchangeable lens system, that's together, in terms of units increase is only around about 6%. But in terms of revenue, it's almost flat line. So there's no increase in terms of sales numbers. No. And that is not very good. So that means companies are not making as much money as they really want to, You know, there's not literally no increase there, and all the increase now be absorbed by the camera with built-in lens category. So whoever manufacturers are making these cameras are reaping the rewards at the moment.
I would love to know what those cameras are. I'd love to know
Yeah.
what they are. They're gonna be Kodak's Pix
Oh yeah.
Pros, aren't they?
I think
Costing
it's
80
the, I think it's
bucks.
the I think it's the Kodak.
Yeah,
So
point and shoot. We'll stick with point and shoot. Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
definition. I mean,
yeah,
we don't know. That would be interesting, but that's going to be the bulk of the sales because people
yeah,
can see, oh, it's Kodak and it's $80, $90. What could go wrong? I'll buy one. Then they'll
yeah,
find out. But
yeah.
it's
And
interesting, isn't it?
it's very very interesting, and I'm really certain that whoever makes point and shoot in that category, who sees the increase in the sales numbers and are literally laughing now and just like, I never thought this would come back.
I think we're seeing a shift in fashion, aren't we? Because a few years ago, you would get taken seriously
Yep.
if you had decent kit, whereas
Yep.
today you're judged more on your style
Yeah.
or your on trend accessories,
Yep.
and your kind of hipster outlook. I don't know if people say hipster anymore,
Oh, they do.
but
They
it
do. Yes.
yeah, they do. So I think these days it might be cooler to have a Kodak Pix Pro than a Leica Q. Who knows?
Well, let's put it that way. Yeah. I mean, like traditional point and shoot camera, I mean, are quite portable. They are very slim. They are very small. They are easily slip into shirt pocket even. You know, there was something like the Leica Q or the Sony RX1 Mark III won't be able to do, even though they are relatively
Yeah.
compact, but they're not compact to the level that you can just basically slip it into trousers pocket and things like that. You know, but the traditional point and shoot, just like these, I'm just going to quickly show you guys, you know, like just by comparison, they're just like simply quite looking at it. Even look at how tiny these little old Canon point and shoot are. They're just like a pack of
Yeah.
gums, you know, like they are small, they are tiny. And, you know, that's why a lot of young people are buying these little cameras, especially because they are easy to carry. You know, it's not something that they take up space.
It's possible that we're talking about different audiences here as well, because I don't think we can say that the point and shoot cameras are stealing sales from
Yeah.
interchangeable lens cameras because the users aren't the same.
No, that definitely not. But obviously, you know, like we when we talked about the interchangeable numbers aren't that great. But if you look at a little bit deeper, let me just go back down here, just highlighting these SLR sales and then also the mirrorless sales, and you can see a slightly clearer picture here. The main reason why the overall revenue is flatline, while the unit shipment has gone up by only 6%, is because of the decrease in single lens reflex. So obviously we expected that, right? We already kind of knew the SLR sales are keep on decreasing. Basically, people are not really buying them. Although, having said that, there's another trend apparently saying that people are starting to buy SLRs again. I don't know how true is that, or whether how long this will sustain to have any sort of impact.
I think this is a really big thing on YouTube, and it's starting to rub off on other content channels.
Yep.
But the trouble with getting your evidence from YouTube is the algorithm gives you more of what you've already watched.
Yeah.
So if I was watching videos on people saying,
yep,
mirrorless camera, digital SLRs are terrible, this is why you have to have mirrorless.
Yeah.
Then if I watch enough of those, I'd get the impression that DSLRs were dead. So YouTube isn't much help here really, because it just gives you more of what you watch. But I think probably more people are using DSLRs than the figures suggest, because they're all buying old ones off MPB or used camera retailers, because they figured out, and they've got enough YouTubers telling them now that you can buy a 10-year-old DSLR. It's fine.
Yep.
So
I think that is what's happening too.
I think so. Yeah, but I think there are probably more people buying used cameras than there used to be, and I think this might be a side effect of the kind of general slowdown in technical development.
and
I think
also I think another reason is because new gear are really expensive. You know, they are just they are ridiculous expensive now. You know, like I think that I just don't think, you know, anyone could possibly start a hobby, not even a profession, start a hobby in digital photography if they want to get something half decent. You know, like you can still buy relatively cheap system, but if we can't start, let's say, a system with $1,000 or maybe 1,500. We can't start it now.
It depends. Well, I don't know. It depends on what you're prepared to buy and use. See, I would say, I don't think I'd agree with that, because I don't know what it costs in different territories, but in the UK you can get a Lumix G97. I know it's a reheat of an older camera.
Yep.
With a 24 to 120 equivalent lens for £600.
Yep.
Now that is a good camera to start with, but of course, if you buy that, all the camera club experts next time you take it out will tell you you should have bought full frame, or you should have bought this, or you should have bought that. So I think there are choices out there for beginners, but experts won't necessarily point them in the right direction.
No, but you know, overall, I do think that because of the price, the current prices, for modern cameras in the last few years, has driven up people's interest in looking into second-hand market. Yeah, you can easily save money. You can easily save yourself 30-35%, you know, from new for going second-hand. You're looking at 2 or 3 year old models.
I think, put it this way, it will cost you a lot of money to buy into a system that your peers would respect. Because do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
That if you're mixing with other photographers, there's a lot of gear snobbery going on.
Yeah.
And you'll get a lot of people telling you why their more expensive gear is better than yours.
Yeah.
They'll probably try and do it in a very nice way, but it's you have to try and stay away from that kind of conversation. So if you want to keep up with what your expert friends tell you to get, it will cost you quite a lot to get into photography.
Don't go down the rabbit holes, I'm telling you.
Just circling back a moment. I never thought I'd say circling back, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Must have seen too many PowerPoints. So this side towards screen has been kind enough to break down the cost of Sony 875 in MA. Is that Massachusetts?
Right, let me just gonna print it up here. Sony A75 on B&H, I think. Yep.
You've got B&H list price, but then you've got $181 tax on top of that. So I think if you live in the States, I guess you're used to that. If you live anywhere else, it's a shock, because anywhere else, you know, the price is the price. You might have to pay £8 in the UK for delivery, but that'd be it. So
even in Japan, the price you see is already tax included, and if you're tourist, it's simply just minus the 10%. You claim it back, and then just like anywhere else in Europe and UK, any prices you see are tax included. So, I think America and Canada as well. They both use the same system. So price you have to add on top of the GST or VAT, whatever tax on top of it.
So if Jimmy and I talk about prices, we just imagine it to be what you pay, but of course that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And also something that obviously we didn't talk about is not included in this, you know, just by looking at this comment here. Film sales and used film cameras are going up. I mean, obviously, so I don't think anyone is producing new film camera apart from a dedicated few. Pentax 17 is one film cameras are are brand new that you can still buy. Lomography just released some new film cameras, but they're not made in Japan, so they're not Japanese brands. So I don't think they'll be included in this chart at all. So I would guess Pentax probably the only one, if they're gonna have a chart, they almost certainly they're gonna be the only one there that have a film cameras sales at the moment. So it's certainly very interesting to see the resurgence of film cameras or analog photography, because I'm pretty sure that has a somehow related effect into some of these older type of digital cameras suddenly resurfacing on the sales market and and even in conversation, people are talking about SLRs, DSLRs, the resemblance of it, because essentially they are the same technology, just replacing the film with digital sensor. And while mirrorless is basically it's completely different technologies altogether. You remove the mirror house, that you don't feel like a traditional camera because you don't have that flap. You don't use OVF, for instance. So the shooting experience, if you grew up with mirrorless technologies, suddenly if you want to switch back into DSLR, it's a very different shooting experience altogether.
Well, I think so, and I think as well there's a whole generation of content creators who wouldn't
Yep.
know what to do with a viewfinder if they had one, because they're so accustomed to interacting with
With the screen.
the capture device with the screen. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen so many new fashion photographer now, the younger ones. They literally don't use even the EVF. They don't even look at the EVF now. They just hold
no,
the camera right in front of them and just look at the back screen, and they shoot them that way. They shoot the entire fashion shoot with the back screen. I mean, this is
yeah.
more or less how they grow up with the screen, and they so used to looking at the screen like that. And while slightly more mature photographer like ourselves, are more tuned into looking through a little tunnel, looking at the little bright windows there, and compose it that way. So, if you ask me to look at the rear screen, I just feel it a bit unnatural. The only time I will look at the screen like that is if I want to shoot hip level, just flip the screen up or use it as a video camera. Then that's the only time I kind of would shoot it that way.
I think it's probably the same for me. I do like a rear screen for any kind of touristy street photography, because I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
a bit less intrusive.
They think you're one of them.
But and then yeah, well, exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how I
blend in.
approach
Yeah,
travel photography. Be a
yeah,
tourist.
yeah.
But in other situations, if you can't see screen and you wish you had an EVF, if the sun's at the wrong angle or you've got a very bright overcast sky,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
becomes very difficult to actually see the screen. So you put
yeah,
the brightness to maximum and
yeah,
your battery's dead in about 20 minutes. So
yeah, yeah.
that
Sure,
becomes a bit annoying.
of course. I just want to bring it back to this chart here for again, because we looked at the global shipment for the interchangeable category. But interesting, if you look at just swing across to the right of this chart here, look in the same row for the interchangeable system. Japan has a really struggling in terms of sales. If you look at them in both category, mirrorless and the SLR category, both decreasing massively. So like I'm actually really surprised to see that, and that means that internally, domestically, Japan are not even buying mirrorless cameras. If you look at it, it's actually shrunk by quite a bit, not small. We're talking about 16% drop in terms of unit shipment within Japan. So they have somehow reluctant about whether it's something to do with the economy in general, because I know that Japanese domestic economy has been struggling for some time. People are squeezing feeling the crunch from the inflations, because I know they have high inflations in Japan as well, just like us. And but it hit them particularly hard, from what I heard. Even though I know the tourism industry is booming, but the rest of them are actually not doing as well. So that may have an impact on their buying power, the spending power, and because essentially, if you look at it, unless you're making money from photography, is this an expensive hobby, and then like what we talked about, cameras and lenses are not cheap, and you have to invest a lot of money into buying a kit. Sometimes you save for a couple of years, 3 years to buy a lens. If they're that expensive, and it wouldn't surprise me that they can't afford them now, so they just kind of hold on to the spending on luxury items like these and concentrating on the day-to-day living. But on the other hand, if you look at the rest of the world, right? And it has, obviously, the mirrorless market has gone quite a bit better. But if you look at the SLR, to my surprise, is actually, although it's decreasing, but it's still not as bad. And then it's like 70%, so it's a minus 30%. But if you compare to Japan, look at the numbers, yeah. So it's shocking.
It would be interesting to do an experiment. It can't be done anymore because it's not possible. But if all the DSLRs that were once on sale were still on sale, I wonder what the figures would look like today. You know, if you could still buy all those Canon Rebels and all the ones
Yeah,
in the middle of the range, and all the Nikon APS-C and full frame DSLRs instead
yeah,
of the kind of thinned down numbers. Some of this effect is going to be due to reduced availability, I think. So I think the the whole market couldn't wait for DSLRs to die, but
yeah,
they're still here. I
yep,
think they are in decline,
yep.
but I think it's another indicator that sometimes the industry and camera makers are too quick to write off a genre that
Yeah,
still has
yeah,
some life in it.
definitely. You know, you're quite right because the availability of DSLRs is literally none now. If you look at it, I mean,
Well, it's
Canon only have a couple of models selling, and
same
Nikon,
as I think you can for now
yeah,
you can still get the D7500.
yep,
You can still get the D850 and the D780, but
yep,
I don't know how much longer. Incidentally, from
yep,
time to time in the UK, I don't know whether this happens worldwide or in the US. You could get the D780 and the D850 at silly prices. I think I've seen the D780 at like 12.99 in the
oh
UK,
wow,
and the D850 at about 18.99.
yep.
So they've gone up again, but it's worth keeping your eyes open for deals because they're not always announced.
It's funny enough because I was actually looking at DSLRs for the last couple of
Wait,
nights.
what, new or used?
Both. You know,
Both.
the thing is about used is that, I mean, I did look at MPB fairly quickly. A lot of the models that I want, you know, if I want to, I don't usually go for the cheap, the lowest range. I used to go for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
semi-pro or pro range, and for obvious reasons because I like it to be rugged. You know, if I want to shoot, I want to be able to shoot in the rain, for instance, and so they need to be weather sealed, a bit more rugged. So I'm always looking for the mid tier above, and so looking at like you said, if a Nikon would be like D750, D780, or the top end like D800, 810, or
mm,
850, and Canon will be the same, like the 5D Mark III or Mark IV, and that
yeah,
kind of
yeah, for
category.
sure.
But when I looked at MPB, all of these models that I mentioned, majority of them are pretty well used, and
Then
you know,
you have to keep checking back. It's any professional camera will have had a hammering because it's been bought
yeah,
by a professional. Um,
yeah,
I bought my Nikons a couple of years back, and I was quite lucky because both are mine. So I got the D610 and the D800. They both had about 4,500 actuations
that is very
and were
lucky.
hardly used. Well, I think sometimes sites like MPB get ex dealer stock or ex demonstrator or
Yeah, yeah,
liquidation stock or whatever that's
yeah.
never really gone out to customers. But are you a Nikon shooter, Jimmy? Have you ever used Nikon
No.
DSLRs?
Uh,
I think
no, I
I
use
think
the SLR, not DSLRs.
I think you'll find that the mid to upper tier DSLRs interesting because
Yeah.
they're extremely solid,
Yep.
but ergonomically quite different to Canons.
Yeah. Well,
But
I was more particularly looking at the higher resolution sensor model. So
yeah,
whether it's going to be the D800 series, whether it's going to be the 800, 810, or
I
850, or the Canon 5D SR or 5DS. So is and both of these models I'm quite keen to look at. Yeah.
I think I'd choose the 810 over the 800.
Right.
I think
Right.
because I think on the second attempt they got a few things a bit better. The
Right.
D850 is just it's a monster, but in a good way. That is that many would say probably me amongst them. That's the best DSLR ever made.
Ah.
I'd
Right.
for general purpose photography, but
I'll take your word
it's
for it.
big.
I'll take
It's
your word
big.
for it. Just hoping that next month you won't see me holding a DA50.
Well, I'd say the D6 D810 is better than D800.
Right.
The D750 is a perennial favourite. You might find it quite hard to get one in good condition because it's got a
Yeah.
reputation.
Well,
But
this 700 series has got a lower resolution res sensor. It's about 24, 25 megapixel sensor.
24,
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
But
Which is
the
fine.
D780,
Yeah.
D780 is interesting because it's the only Nikon DSLR with the on sensor phase detect.
Which one?
So the D780.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay.
So if you still got to flip the mirror up to use a live view, but after that, the AF should be comparable to the original Z6.
Okay.
So
Well, that's pretty decent.
yeah, yeah. So it's an interesting camera. It's quite a heavyweight, but I'd say that's if you're going to get a modern one,
Yeah. Yeah.
D780 is good, or the D850.
This side to a screen
Interesting.
just mentioned about the K10D. I have a K10D.
I had a K10D which I liked. I had a K20D which I found a bit prone to underexposure,
Oh,
which you can
okay.
compensate for. But that was interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are very good cameras, very solid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I should
you could
I should
probably
show
get
you
them
guys.
quite cheap.
Yeah, probably. I should show you one day my K10D. My K10D is a special one. My K10D is the worldwide limited edition at the time. You know, I think they only had about 500 units or 1,000 units. I can't remember exactly. It's wrapped in brown leatherette and gold lettering on the body. So and the dials are also brown as well. So a slightly different, quirky model. And I think that I've only shot it about 100 times, like 100 actuations on the shutter, so it's practically brand new. Yeah.
There you go. Great Vanzini's reminded me of the D7200, which I
Yeah.
owned for a while. That is
Yeah.
a top quality mid-range APS-C Nikon. It's extremely good, and I think the D75 replaced it, but wasn't as well received. So yeah, that's another
So,
one.
when I see, like, you know, we are all talking about DSLR. So, like, Tony also talked about DSLR. That he's planning on buying one. I think it's this kind of maybe people of our age. I mean, you may be younger, yeah, you know, like, but Rod and I are not exactly call ourselves a young chick anymore, and but we
Old Rooster.
and I just think that, you know, I kind of missed the DSLRs for some reasons. I mean, I've been shooting mirrors for a number of years now, and occasionally I do have my film SLR. So every time I hold a DSLR and like, do a couple of clicks, and it just kind of remind me of that flapping sound, the vibration coming up from it. You know, it just had that old feeling of it. It's a bit of nostalgia.
I think as well, photographers are like regular people. They get bored. They want to change. And you know, so you swap from mirrorless to DSLR, have fun with that for a while, then think, do you know what, I'll go back to mirrorless.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. You just need a bit of variety, and I think
Yeah.
possibly the reason that DSLRs won't go away is that they are quite appealing to handle,
Yeah,
despite all their limitations.
absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a cultural shock to even myself, because I haven't really shoot with a DSLR for quite a few years now. So if I go back to it, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna miss the ibis. I'm gonna do this. you don't
You're gonna have to. You might want to do a bit of strength training for your forearms in the gym.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because especially if you get a D850, the lenses aren't out of this world for pricing, are they? I think the last time I looked, I was thinking of getting the Nikon 14 to 24 2.8.
Oh yeah,
And it wasn't silly money. It's like, I think I saw some examples of like 500 or 600 UK pounds.
Yeah.
But that's not bad for what is a pretty amazing lens. So
yeah.
it's not an expensive route at the moment, old Nikon or old Canon DSLRs.
No. I mean, if you
So
like,
it's worth-
I mean,
yeah.
I think camera, I could do with a new body if I can get hold of a new body for a reasonable price. But lenses, I don't mind getting second hand, because you know, if you keep it nice and clean, if you have no bang to it, you know, it should last for as long as you want, really. So technically,
Well, I think then if you keep an eye on shops like Wex and Park, Nikon has from time to time really dropped its DSLR prices and not really told anyone, and you just see one day that they're like 500 cheaper than they were before. So keep an eye on the prices.
I shall do.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, enough DSLR talks, and
Yes.
let's move back. Now we're going to go down a little bit more. Now we're now looking into the global shipments and also revenue by format or sensor size. Yeah.
Yes.
This is the interesting part, I think. That's another telltale that we want to talk about. So I'm going to highlight. I'm going to draw the. Oops, hang on. So I'm going to draw this bit here. So I'm going to look at this section here. If I can draw it with my little mouse here, so I don't have a pen. Sorry about that. There we go. So this section that we're going to focus on now. So first of all, we already talked about the camera with interchangeable lens, but let's focusing on the format. Yeah, they have 35 millimeters or larger, which means full frame or larger, including medium format. And we have less than 35 millimeters, which means crop sensors. Yeah. So it's certainly, and again, very interesting. If you look at the numbers, again, globally, so we look at global figures now. So the one with full frame or larger, yeah, it's gone up only about 2% into shipment. Yeah, in terms of revenue, it's actually gone down. So it could be a lot of competitions there, and we do know. Sorry,
Jamie. Which column are we looking at? We seem to have moved in to a second column. What's that column you've circled?
This is the total shipment worldwide.
I get it.
Yep,
Yeah,
total shipment worldwide. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so the total shipment worldwide for full frame or larger is only increased by just under 2%. And the revenue is actually decreased by almost 5%. And that means that two things. The demand for full frames has almost flattened, it's stagnant, and in terms of the actual revenue, the income coming from that is gone down. So it could means that there are lots of, I would say, probably competitions, among the full frame market. People are discounting left, right, and center, trying to shift products. And that is not really a good sign. So they're producing more but getting back less. So that is potentially a problem. For the full frame boys, who are in the full frame market right now. On the other hand, if you look at the crop sensor has actually gone up almost 10%. And looking at the revenue is quite healthy. And if you look at it, because it's increased by almost 10%, and the unit sales has gone up by almost 9%. So crop sensors demand has gone up, So it's certainly very, very interesting by looking at that.
It's curious, isn't it? I wonder if it's price related or what it is. I mean, I find it difficult to get too excited about the crop sensor market. I think that's going to be mostly APS-C, isn't it? Because I just don't feel. Excuse me. I think there's a couple of things. I don't understand why all the bodies don't have IBIS, which is very annoying. And also, I think the lens ranges are still quite patchy. And the Canon and Nikon are still trying to use APS-C to get people where they really want them, which is full frame. So it's interesting though. I imagine that's made up of, well, we're going to be talking about Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm, and possibly Panasonic and OM System, but it's mainly going to be and Sony, of course. It's mainly going to be the big four. So clearly, people. There's a slight trend towards getting crop sensor cameras. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, whether it has to do with, the general public now realizing two things, or maybe even more than two things. First of all, is the overall system size, and even with APS-C, they may not be as light as Micro Four Third, but they are still a little bit smaller overall than the full frame. Wow. And if you can get some of these Chinese prime lenses from Viltrox, for instance, because they are producing a lot more APS-C dedicated APS-C lenses than the Japanese themselves, and then you can potentially find a travel system with 3 little primes. Significantly smaller than any full-frame equivalent, while not sacrificing too much when it comes to image quality.
It is also cheaper to get into an APS-C system. The lenses are cheaper, even if you might not have quite the same range and choice. The lenses themselves are a little bit easier to afford.
Yeah,
maybe that's a factor. I don't know, but it is interesting. There seems to be a slight shift in that direction.
Yeah, and not only that, I think that Fujifilm does have quite a big part to play as well in terms of the APS-C popularity.
I think probably do They
Yeah,
probably
I
do.
mean,
I think they've created a demand really for a
they
smaller
have.
format camera.
Yes, and if you look at the Fuji's latest financial report, I think it only came out a few days ago or last week, and they have the strongest ever turnover, in terms of the imaging department. So
Yeah, is that Instax? Is that Instax doing that? I don't know.
very possibly, very possibly. So I don't know, how exactly would that how that worked, because I know the X half, the XM5 was selling exceptionally well, and you know, by any standard. So that might have pushed a lot of people, because XM5 is a very very portable camera. If
Yeah.
you pair
Well,
it
and
with some
it's
of their small primes, it's really tiny.
and relatively speaking, it doesn't cost much.
No,
But
no.
I think the X half is interesting because in the UK at least that's come down considerably in price.
Yes.
But I think it's the X half is a camera that all the experts think is rubbish, but everybody wants it. So what do experts know?
Well,
And they want to
while
because it's a
while we were
charming
talking,
little camera.
yeah, but while we were talking about point and shoot camera earlier, the X half
Yeah.
essentially is a point and shoot camera.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
yeah, in
yeah,
every sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it's also, you can't change the lens. It's got fixed lens on it. It's got
Yeah.
well, small-ish sensor. It's still 1 inch, but it's a small-ish sensor compared to the other system, and it's relatively portable compared to all the other systems out there. I think that Fujifilm has kind of ripped a reward for these little formats. I would call it the little
I think
formats.
so. Little
Yeah,
formats.
little formats.
There's little formats, and you're a Micro Four Thirds user. Careful what you say.
Well,
But
I have to hoping that the Michael Four Third would do well in this category as well. I'm pretty sure that that's also has some positive impact because of the crop sensor effects, I think.
yeah, yeah. But I think I don't know whether it's a kind of rebellion against full frame cameras that we're seeing. I doubt that, but I think there's been a certain steadying of opinion, and people are kind of realizing that you don't have to keep going for the upsell all the time. You can find
Yeah.
something that's right for you, and that's enough.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Right, so we move on to the next part, which is another interesting bit, because now we've seen the global figures, yeah, and which tell you almost all the stories, but not exactly, because now if you look into the regional figures, will tell a slightly more interesting angle. Let me just remove this. Right, okay. So now we're into regional now.
There ought to be a column for cameras that you bought, Jimmy, because you've been pretty busy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I wanted a change, right? So it's just
Shipments to Jimmy.
Shipment to Jimmy.
Yeah, up 200% year on year.
Up, yeah, oh, definitely. So now we got this 4 or 5 main columns of this same category, same thing, yeah. So now let's concentrate on the top bit there, which is the total unit sales. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna highlight this bit here. Oops, sorry. I'm just gonna run out of space. There we go. Okay. So now we're looking at shipments to China. Let's look at China first. China has seen some relatively good signs in terms of units shipment, 116%. That's quite a big increase for the market. And in terms of revenue, again, you can kind of see that, like, even the unit sales has gone up, unit shipment has gone up, but revenue not necessarily go in line with the unit shipment increase. So that means that it should reflect general competitiveness within the market. So each manufacturer may have to reduce the RRP or put on sales a lot more than often, trying to compete in the market. But still, it's an increase of almost 7%. So it's definitely very encouraging. That's for China. And shipments to Asia, so this is interesting, obviously excluding Japan and China. So we talk about Korea, Malaysia, Vietnam, all the other places, right? It's kind of similar figures, 114, 14% increase in unit shipment. And Europe is the weakest of the bunch. We're talking about us now, right? The Europeans and then the UK we only gone up by around 6%, and
It shows how cheap we are over here.
or the import duties and VATs is too much.
I don't think that has changed.
No.
VAT's been the same for a long time, and we're not uh, placing any tariffs on imports. I think let's look at this objectively. Sales to the UK have still gone up, but just not as much as other people.
No,
So
no.
it's not like we bought less. It's just that we haven't gone quite as mad as the rest of the world for all these new
No.
cameras.
Yep. So, I mean, it wouldn't come as a surprise. In the American market, it still count as probably the biggest. You know, in terms of unit shipment.
Yeah, it's gone up. It's gone up the most. Well, it's gone up a lot anyway. Yeah.
It's gone up a lot. Not is in terms of numbers. Unit shipment is still the biggest, 2.3 million units. And compared to China is catching up, 2.26 million. So they're not far behind. And but you know, in terms of unit sales, it's gone up by 12, almost 13%. So it's also a very good sign. Revenue is about the same as China. I mean, I think due to general competitive market conditions, it's gone up by 5.5%. So which is still not too bad, I would say. And the other area, which has kind of struck me a little bit, you know, I don't know what the other areas are, whether it can be South Americas and all the other places not listed in there. It's gone up significantly. You know, in terms of percentage, 31%. That is a massive increase.
America's presumably includes both North and South America.
Yeah, you think so?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not entirely sure.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would have thought Americas would be the US and Canada together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or is that just North America? I don't know.
That's North America. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure.
No.
But I would have thought. I would have thought because of the shipment numbers so big, I would presume it's going to be the North Americans because they tend to be eating up a lot of the cameras.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the numbers for other areas are quite small, so I guess they're going to be
quite small. But
so,
even though they're small, but the increase is significant. It's 30% increase. It's big.
So all this doom and gloom, they're still selling more cameras than ever.
Yep.
Basically.
Basically. So it's very interesting to see these numbers. But now, again, let's look at the point and shoot, which is what Rod hates to say. Camera with built-in lens.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. And across the board, actually, because of the global sales number, you can see that the global numbers are pretty good.
Yeah.
China in particular is by far the most in terms of these type of cameras, gone up by 50% increase, and in terms of percentage, it's massive. Revenue jumped by 67%. I think a lot to do with the hypes, and I'm pretty sure a lot of them is due to the hype for Fujifilm stuff, and then that kind of effects, and because from what I know, a lot of the retailers in China are selling above RRP. If they, as soon as they get hold of let's say X100 series cameras, and you have to pay a premium to get one of them brand new. So that wouldn't surprise me. But these are good numbers, 67%. Imagine that, you suddenly your revenue gone up by 67%. That's quite a lot. And the rest of the Asia is no slouch. It's almost similar. 50% increase in revenue, and shipments gone up by almost 40%. So it's still really, really good number. Again, European is still gone up by a respectable number, but we're still not as trendy as the Asian people. So point and shoot cameras, we're still very slow in adapting or loving them, but still gone up by 25%. America's also similar to us. I think we have similar sort of a taste, and so 25%, 40% in revenue. The other areas, again, 50% increase and 40% increase in revenue. So I guess apart from I would say probably the European and Americans, almost the rest of the world are really into the fixed lens cameras.
I think there's been a long narrative that these cameras are taking sales from mirrorless and DSLR cameras. I'm not sure. I think maybe we're seeing these cameras take sales from phones.
Yeah,
Because
think
I
so?
think we've been through all the whole phone camera hype.
Yep.
We kind of come out the other side. We know what phone cameras can do, and it can be very impressive. But I feel a lot of people want devices with a simple clarity of purpose.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your phone is your browser, your email client, it's your
Yeah.
camera, you use it to look at your photos. You use your phone for a million things. It's a complex device. I
Yeah.
think people like the idea of just a simple device for a single task. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of a shift from doing everything on your phone to buying a camera. Maybe cameras are the new trend.
And if that is a trend to last, I mean, I'm pretty certain, I'm very certain the camera makers are very, very happy. I mean, because to all the manufacturers out there, I mean, like, I'm talking about everybody apart from well, actually even Sony, point and shoot were their bread and butter, right? You know, back in the days, they
Yeah.
were their bread and butter. They accounted for almost, 3/4 of the annual turnover and profits. So the interchangeable lenses back in the days were SLRs or DSLRs, and they only counted for a small portions of the whole turnover thing. The point and shoot were the big sellers. So if that trend is going to be here and stay here, if that is the trends that people are really trying to step away from phone, the phone thing is gone now, and this could be a revival for all camera makers in general. I'm just
Well,
talking a bit extreme here.
possibly. Jimmy, have I disappeared from the screen? Have you got rid of me?
No, actually, shouldn't
Am I
have.
there? Oh, I'm not.
Hang on, let me see.
I don't have any particular wish
there
to
you
see.
go.
Oh, there. See, I'm
There
back.
you go.
I'm back.
You're back.
You
I have
can't
no
get
idea
away
what
with
happened
this.
there.
You can't get away with this stuff, Jimmy. I'll always see.
But yeah, it's
No,
weird, right?
I think yes, a few things are happening in terms of fashion and trends at the moment. I
Yeah.
don't know whether they'll continue, but I do feel I'm seeing people valuing older kit more than they used to, and
Yep.
not being swept up along with the constant need for progress.
Yeah.
I'm no expert on Japanese culture at all, but we were talking about Japanese numbers earlier. But
Yep.
in Japan, you have this thing about this wabi sabi thing, don't you? Where you value imperfection,
Well, yes.
and instead of buying a camera that's perfect, that does everything,
Yeah.
I think a lot of photographers are quite enjoying a camera that has limits, and then working within them.
A bit more raw, a bit more pure, and then
It's simple.
It's more authentic.
Simple and accepting of limitations. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think possibly we're seeing that with point and shoot cameras. I'm going to use the term. So so maybe I think a number of people picking up kind of Kodaks or other point and shoot models and championing them are kind of refugees from the whole smartphone scene. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean it's certainly very interesting to see these numbers, and because when we come down to the interchangeable bit, it's going to be even more interesting because in some way worrying, at least coming from from a UK perspective. Maybe we shall dive down a little bit now, but before we go to Europe, let's look at China, because China shows some interesting signs of certain things. So in the interchangeable category, I'm going to highlight that now. Well, look at that number for SLRs and mirrorless, in general. They are really not buying any DSLRs anymore. 33%, that's a 70% decrease.
You can't buy them.
Yeah, perhaps. You look at the unit sales, 28,000. And this is really nothing. But if you just look across the line there, look at the Europe and Americas, we're still selling in hundreds of thousands, while the Chinese are really not having it.
No. It is interesting, but then again, we're assuming that the audience is broadly the same in these different territories.
Yeah.
In terms of culturally and financially, I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah.
just sidetracking slightly, I see in the comments this side towards screen says small cute cameras are strong in Japan. I would go along with that.
Yes,
And
definitely.
if anyone here has any influence with Canon, I would say forget the power shots, bring back all those smart little Ixus models that
Yep,
we had 10 years ago. They are super cute.
they are, and continue to be so. And I
Or
think that
Elf in the US, I think.
yeah, and I think that is probably the reason we see those numbers from China or Asia in general. That number has gone down significantly for SLRs because they are, even the smallest ones are pretty bulky by today's standard. If you switch to mirrorless, you know, especially the crop sensor one, Micro Four Third in particular, they can be very, very small. You know, a couple of small prime lenses, you are talking about miniature size. That's what the Asian tends to like. You know, they like small things, they don't like bulky things.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, obviously the diehards and enthusiasts will still want to go for the pro stuff. They will have the ultra fast primes and things that's massive and bulky. They like that. But those are still compared to the general population of photographers or people who buy cameras. And I think that most people who buy cameras are usually family member, family man, family or mum who just want to capture the kids. They want a slightly more decent cameras to capture the kids. Not necessarily they need to get the pro stuff, but at the same time they don't want to hog up the space at home, or when they go out they don't want to carry a big camera bag. They just want to put it in their handbags or tote bag or something like that. They want something small and easy to carry. And this is the sole reason why they like smaller systems. And that's traditionally has always been true, because you look at just the domestic sales market. Remember back in, for the past 12 years, not so about 2023 and 2024, even 2025, Olympus Micro Four Third system in particular, and Panasonic Lumix, before they went full frame, the Micro Four Third were always in the top 5 sales figures, because they like small subs, they like small system. And only until Lumix kind of given up on Micro Four Third, and there was a changeover between Olympus and OM system. And during that time, there weren't many new models coming out, and that's when it kind of dropped out of the top 5 scenes. And but in general, I would say that it is something that they like. And to be quite honest, given a choice, I would choose the smaller system if I go out and about. Not necessarily I want to carry a big heavy kit unless I'm working. And so I think that that's one of the appeals for crop sensor, and that's also reflected maybe some of the figures that we just saw, that why crop sensor are becoming slightly more popular, because now they think that, okay, the full frame craze has gone and passed, and people are starting to maybe, after a few years now, they bought the first full frame cameras. They use it for a few years. Now come to the upgrade time, and then they can realize, and they try out some other system. They realize they can get smaller and lighter system from having not so much of an image quality sacrifice. They're looking at some of the crop sensors alternatives, and they find out, oh, I can get similar sort of thing and for smaller package. I think that may be an impact.
I think it's difficult for beginners as well, because they don't fully understand what they're getting into. So Canon might be able to convince them they need a full frame camera.
Yep.
And it turns out they don't. Beginners have to take advice about what to buy.
Yeah.
And they'll get that advice from camera makers. So so I think a lot of people will probably end up with bigger cameras than they intended to.
No, just because people say we're the best one.
Well, yeah. There are lots of assumptions and myths around sensor size and image quality that don't really stack up, and people put so much emphasis on that and none on whether the thing itself is small, practical, and simple, which is often what people might value more.
Because I had a few of my family members, and they never get influenced by me, even though I work in the field, funnily enough. And then they always have their own thinking and buy their own stuff. And quite a few of them bought the Sony A7 series cameras. And a few years back now, that's when the full frame went to its peak. When everything was full frame. Everyone was talking about full frame. Oh, if you want the best quality, full frame. You want the sharpest result, go full frame. You want the best system, full frame. Everything was full frame. And now 4 or 5 years on, and quite a few of them actually came up to me without me even talking to them about cameras. They actually came up to me. I'm changing my camera. I said, "What are you upgrading to something else?" I said, "I'm changing to APS-C. I'm changing to Micro Four Third." I said, "Why?" I said, because it's they're too big. The A7 was too big, and then I think they're slowly realizing, especially for what they use it for. Most of them really just taking pictures on family holidays and birthday parties. They're not actually
Well,
photography enthusiasts. They don't go and take landscape photo, wildlife, and things like that.
no. And I think even experts and certainly beginners, there's a cutoff point where
Yep.
there's enough complexity and they don't want any more.
Yeah.
And I think so many cameras have gone beyond that. That I think
Yeah.
we're seeing a bit of a reaction to it. What's that Canon vlogging camera? The EOS R50V. So
Oh,
it's a kind of entry level vlogging camera.
the one
It's
without
quite
the
affordable.
one without ibis.
Yeah, and no EVF.
Oh,
So
I know
there's
which one you
that.
talk about. Yeah,
But
yeah,
then,
yeah,
but then, Canon is pitching this at new vloggers, but
Yep.
it's got log profiles.
yeah.
You know, what is that? What's a log profile doing on a camera for that audience? It annoys me because I think it's showing no respect for people's ignorance. I say ignorance. Lots of people come to photography not really
Yeah.
knowing very much and hoping somebody will help them.
Yeah.
I think a
yeah.
camera that sophisticated, pitched to beginners, is not helpful.
No.
That's my personal feeling.
You know what? I think to me the best, at least in recent times, the best entry level cameras that I could think of, it has to be the Olympus EM10 series. You know, they are the one with a very simple menu system, big graphical icons when you switch mode. It describes what it does. You know, it's a very really beginner oriented. Although you can go full menu, so they still have the capability of doing full menu. But in any of the semi-auto mode, it guides you with a very simple interface, which I don't see in any modern cameras now.
This is something we have lost because for a long time when I was on a photo magazine, we were recommending the Nikon D3500,
Yep.
cheap entry level DSLR, I think around £400 with a lens. Very simple. It couldn't do very much, but even a novice could quickly understand what it's capable of. And that the same thing that had a simplified graphical interface,
Yes.
which as soon as you move beyond that, you could go into the full menu system. But that seems to have gone away. This kind of beginner friendliness seems to have gone away, as has the price point.
Well, we simply don't have beginner level cameras now, right? I mean, if you look at OM System, although they still sell the EM10 Mark IV, but then they're in terms of new cameras, the lowest is the OM5, which is a semi pro models, you know,
That's
and
quite
then
a serious camera. Yeah.
So it doesn't have the same kind of simple, like, you know, interface that the EM10 had. And similarly for all the other camera makers, they don't make entry level cameras now, so they all lost it, and they're all just having a very complicated 100 sub menu pages of a menu system, which you have to dig in to find out exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Of each one of them.
Yeah. You're trying to sort out maybe you're trying to work out how to enable the focus magnifier. You've got to look in about 5 different places and several sub-menus. And very often, particularly with video features, you can't have a video feature in one menu unless you change something in another menu. I had this with Panasonic a while back.
Yeah.
I couldn't set the frame rate to 60 frames a second while I had unless I selected MP4 in a different menu.
Yeah.
It's the file format. So this is a kind of complexity which has evolved, and
Yes.
it means all our cameras are now incredibly sophisticated, but that's not helpful to new users.
Yeah. Yeah.
The side towards screen. If I hear affordable on the YouTube channel, it's 4,000 4K plus. Yeah, probably.
It's pretty much these days. I'm telling you. So yeah. You know, like back in the days, we can talk about £500 or $500, and then like these days, you'll be lucky to see anything like that.
But the curious thing about experts in publishing or on YouTube anywhere is that they're constantly in competition with each other. Not overtly, but they just want to feel they know that bit more, or have that little bit more money, or have more contacts and more different companies.
Yeah.
it's quite a competitive thing. It's quite sad, really, but it does mean that the whole thing escalates to the
Yeah,
point
it
where it
does.
becomes very expensive and very complex.
It is, and I mean, we could talk about it. Obviously, this sort of effects, influencer effects, whether it's
Yeah,
good or
yeah,
bad, in a
yeah,
separate video, because I do have
yeah.
something to say about that as well. I think that the traditional journalism that Rod you grew up with, like in terms of your
Yeah,
career, it's it's almost changed now, right? It's because of the influencer markets. The whole kind of social media platform has
mm,
really shifted. Changing the landscape into journalism's and the general reviews point of view. Things has moved on quite a bit since. Before you do some technical assessments on the capabilities of the camera and look at feature by features, and things seem to move away from that a little bit now.
I think what's happening is in print there has always been a lot more accountability
Yeah.
because the readers will soon tell you if they bought your magazine and they don't like what's in it. And there's also a bit more ethical accountability
Yeah.
for larger publishers.
Yeah.
So I think the whole creator market has changed things quite a lot. You get a lot of different voices,
Yeah.
but a lot of them are shouting about stuff that's simply not true. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a jungle out there.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I see in the comments John Piggott makes the point camera makers are only interested in the money and not the photographers. But honestly, it's what their business is. You can't
Well,
really you can't
yeah.
really criticize them for that.
I want to chip into that as well. John, I totally appreciate that as well. I personally feel that way, but at the same time, they are still a business. Without making money, they can't continue the
Yeah,
R&D and push on the technologies and give us a new model. They do need to make money to enable them to do that. But how much of the passion still within the company about photography is another matter altogether.
it's it becomes a strategic decision whether you target people financially or in terms of their aspirations or nostalgia or dreams or style or whatever. And each maker tends to do it differently. I would say, for example, that Panasonic is very much trading on price at the
Yep.
moment, but a company like Leica is trading on aspiration and dreams,
Yep.
which people will often pay a lot of money for. So it depends on what the manufacturer feels is its target, its
Yeah.
audience. Like Leica works very hard at promoting photography because
Yeah.
that's important to the kind of people who buy its cameras.
Yeah.
But I think probably less so for other brands.
It's funny, in fact, you mentioned about Leica, because I got a newsletter from them. So I click onto the link yesterday and look into the latest website. I couldn't even believe my eyes was what I was looking at. And, I remember only about a year ago when I look at Leica website, they were selling, traditionally, the M system, the Q
Yeah,
system, and the SL system.
yeah,
I know they launched a couple of watches and things like that. But now if you
yeah. I
click
knew
onto
about
the
the watches.
website,
Yeah,
they sell pen, they sell
yeah.
leather
Got gifts
goods.
now. Yeah,
They
yeah.
they're becoming a lifestyle company now. If you look at the website, it's like,
Well, it's a luxury brand. It's brand extension, isn't it?
yeah,
You
which is
you've
kind of
you've got
crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
It
yeah,
is. It's
unfortunately, it's
it's a
very
bit
different.
disappointing, but yes, I think different camera makers trade on different things. If the camera makers felt there was a market in quality photography, you can be sure they'd be pursuing that. But I think in marketing generally, it's always easier to work off value than it is off aspirations.
Yeah, but like what
Sell
John
it,
said, I wish
do
I could
more
do
for
that.
less money.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, let's move
Yeah,
on to the chart again. And
yeah.
okay, let's see what the next bit is. So I'm gonna just go back on here. So let's so now look at so we just talked about China in terms of the SLR, which basically the overall appetite the Chinese has is now mainly towards the mirrorless market. And while the rest of the world are pretty much similar to each other, however, if you're looking Let's go to the Europe and Americas, for instance. So I'm going to just quickly remove that. Just looking at the European and the Americans. So looks like the Americans still love the DSLRs. Look at that, 86% or 87%. So it's only down by 20% compared to Europe. We're down by almost 40%. By the same period. So we definitely didn't like as many DSLRs as what we used to, while the American seems to hold on to it.
I have noticed the B&H, and I don't know whether the same is true for Adorama or Best Buy, but B&H is where I tend to check the most, that they will have more older cameras than we have in the UK.
Yep.
So all the older DSLR models sort of vanished from UK retailers. They're still available at B&H. Right. So maybe I think availability might be a factor.
Yeah.
And I also think, without wanting to characterize nations, where Asian countries tend to like things that are small and cute.
Yeah.
I think an American audience is not interested in that. They just want. Well, no, I'm trying not to be stereotype people. I think they are quite happy for things to be big and bulky and heavy.
Yeah.
Because they're there to do a job. So maybe I don't think there's quite the same reaction against DSLRs in the US, maybe for that reason. But I'm convinced a lot of it is down to availability.
Yeah,
and he's just can't buy them so easily.
But it's really kind of weird to see, obviously, because we talked about mirrorless almost like since the beginning of this podcast. But like you look, but now looking at these figures, it really shows that the Americans still pretty much like the DSLRs one way or the other. I mean, if you compare to the Chinese numbers, like Chinese only had about 28,000 units shipped to China in 2025. When compared to the Americans, it's more than 10 times more. 350,000 units. That's quite significant compared to the two of them. And if you look at the European in general, European's not that far behind. It's 250,000 units. So we still like our DSLRs, I guess. Yeah. It would be interesting to see what would happen if you could still buy them. Yeah.
If you could still buy the Nikon D3500.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. That's not a camera you've used, Jimmy, I'm sure, but there are other people out there who have.
Yeah.
So I think that is a sad loss, because that is a simple camera with obvious limitations that you could get your head around.
You know what? I mean, deep down, I really want them to keep the DSLR going. Like even though they don't. Let's say make another. Yeah, let's say they don't make another new model. Just keep the current running for as long as they can. It will be good. Or like you said, it will be good alternative machine to use.
People have different preferences that don't depend on technology, because mirrorless cameras have changed some things that certain part of the audience actually liked. It's a very curious thing with DSLR viewfinder versus mirrorless. Some people like the idea that a mirrorless EVF is showing you what the camera will capture. It's not quite, but we won't go into that. But with the DSLR, because it's optical, what happens is what you see when the camera's to the side is exactly the same through the viewfinder. You don't get that sudden disconnect. It doesn't suddenly become digital before your eyes. So I quite like optical viewfinders for that reason. That the transition from what you're looking at with the naked eye to what you see in the viewfinder, well, there isn't a transition. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think like it's almost like the argument of like electric cars and the internal combustion engine cars, right? It's kind of similar sort of argument. People they're still going to be photographers who love the kind of mechanical feel, the control and the, like, in some way limitations that the DSLR offer without any sort of AI, without any sort of computational stuff. It's just a pure image capturing machine.
We're going to reach the point, if we haven't already, where internal combustion engine cars feel organic, whereas EVs are just sterile. And I think we're kind of getting towards that already. And I
Yeah,
think we've got that with cameras, haven't we? We are seeing, I think, a reaction against what people see as very sterile imaging processes or results. You see it
yeah,
on YouTube with people talking about lenses, saying digital lenses have a very clinical look they don't
they do.
like. They
Yeah, yeah,
prefer the organic, imperfect look of
yeah.
vintage lenses. So it's a curious thing that making things better doesn't always make them more popular. Because
No,
a lot of people liked them when they were worse.
it's very easy to have a very scientific view on things, right? With
Yes,
numbers, or how many lines can this lens resolve? You know, how
yes,
many
yes.
megapixel, how many dynamic range, how many stop of dynamic range you can capture, and this and that. Anything with numbers, quite easy to justify
It
to
is.
tell
It
people.
is.
Yeah.
So if you get in an argument to the pub, you can show people the numbers and you've won.
Yes. Right. Okay. So now we talked about all this stuff. Last section now, before we jump on to chat to you guys about how you feel about it, is the format. And I think this is probably the cream of today's chat, is the format side of it, right? So now let's have a look, and just kind of move my windows a little bit here and there so I can see what's going on. Okay. Now I'm going to highlight this new next section here. Which is, first of all, let's look at the Chinese market again. So this is the Chinese market based on format, right? And remember what we talked about earlier. When we say 35 millimeters or larger, means full frame and medium format. Anything
Yeah.
is full frame and bigger, right? And anything less than that or smaller than that, they would say less than 35 millimeters. That's what what it's saying here. So if you look at the Chinese market in particular, look at that figure. Full frame and medium format has gone down. It's actually decreased. And APS-C or Micro Four Thirds, anything cropped, it's gone up by 20, almost 25% in both unit shipment and revenue. And that is very, very interesting. I've already heard about news that Koreans prefer to have APS-C cameras already. I already read that news. But now, if you look at Chinese seems to say the same thing. So that is interesting. So are they repelling full frame? I'm not entirely sure. Have they got enough of full frames? And it's really interesting.
It is an interesting shift in popularity, isn't it? I'm not quite sure what to read about that, but it does only seem to be that territory.
Yeah, and if you
Because
look
the
at
other territories,
if you look at the numbers, right, and you look at the unit sales, yeah, and you can see full frame shipment is 726,000, while the crop sensor together is almost 1.2 million units.
yeah,
And that's a big difference. So a
yeah.
lot of people are buying crop sensor cameras.
Maybe it is the thing, the smaller devices for the Asian markets. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being a person who review a lot of Chinese lenses in the past few years, and I would say that this year in particular, especially when Laowa sent me the 90 millimeters f2.8 macro lens recently, that is for Micro Four Thirds, and they haven't released a Micro Four Thirds lens for
No,
quite a number of years
no.
since very last time when I reviewed the 6 millimeters, and that was a few years ago now, and they have been concentrating on full frame stuff. And is this what they're seeing right now? Is that the competition within the full frame market has saturated?
Or maybe we don't know all the details of the economic situation. Maybe cameras broadly have become more expensive.
They
People are
are,
going to
yes.
buy the cheaper alternatives. So we can't rule out the possibility this is a kind of economic effect, not
Yes.
necessarily a social one. I don't know.
No, but I mean, but if it's economic, even if it's economic, I think that this is going to be a at least a medium term thing, because
Yes,
if
I
you look
think
at
so.
if you
Yeah.
look at the global economy, I mean, things not going to go better in the next year or two. At least
No,
we're talking about at least 10-year plus, because this is the global thing at the moment. We still got the wars going on. The global economy is not very stable.
there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainties here and there, and it's going to affect everybody's life one way or the other for pretty much at least a number of years. So this trend could continue, and that would mean that the full frame may not recover for the next few years. And in the meantime, all the slightly lesser or cheaper format could potentially take this ground.
I'm with you, Jimmy, on your point that cameras cost too much. They do. Um, and you're paying a lot of money for tech you never asked for and probably don't need.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be lovely if we could go back to the days when you could pay $400 or $500 for a decent little DSLR or mirrorless camera that did all you needed and no more? But I think those days are gone, sadly.
I know, and especially lenses as well. If you look at the lenses, my God, you know, those are these like pro lenses or prime lenses, the pro level zoom lenses. They all like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 or pounds.
I covered the 2 new Canon lenses, which weren't as bad as they could have been, but still plenty. So the 14 f1.4, which is up towards $2,000 or pounds, I think. And that's a pretty specialized lens. I mean, as far as I can see, that's basically for astrophotography.
Yeah.
Possibly some interior architecture. And then there's Canon also wants that fisheye zoom, which is like £1,200 or dollars, I think. So the entry point for photography is just gone through the roof.
They have. Although, I mean, I do appreciate now Nikon and even Canon themselves are fighting back a little bit by introducing what they call slightly lesser lenses. You know, the Nikon has some prime lenses that are relatively affordable. You know, they are literally, some of them are even cheaper than some of the Chinese prime lenses now. And I think they noticed that they want to give people maybe an entry point into their catalogs.
But begin head system now, aren't you? Back in the day.
Yep.
And there's a Nikon 24-85. I think it's f4.5 to 5.6, something like that, which is basically a decent, affordable kit zoom for a 4-frame camera. I don't think Nikon makes anything like that anymore at that price.
No.
So it's, you know, if you're going to get into full frame photography, it's not just the cost of the camera. It's getting quite hard to get cheap lenses to go with it, and particularly cheap zooms.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, you know, it would take some time for them to adjust, and that's for sure. And I mean, I literally just made a video about a couple of Sigma lenses, and they are relatively cheap. They're consumer level lenses. They're not expensive, and they are good cheap alternative if you don't need the native stuff. So it certainly there are options, alternatives out there, but in terms of just natively looking at the big four, for instance, they're still pretty limited. I mean, Canon, Nikon probably by far so far had the I would say the biggest selection of cheaper lenses that they have, and
but it's relative. Though you wouldn't call them cheap, would you?
No, they're still not cheap. You know, compared to the Chinese, you can get a Chinese AF lens for about £100, £120. You know, which you can't definitely get with Nikon. That's for sure.
But I think if we're talking about entry level camera kit and full frame, all the variable aperture kit lenses that were quite cheap seem to have gone.
Yeah.
I mean, Canon's got the 24-105 f4 to 7.1. That's quite good. I don't think Nikon has any affordable variable aperture kit lenses. There's the 28 to 60 retracting lens, but that doesn't really have the range to do the job. But it's this beginner level stuff that seems to be vanishing.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's
absolutely. I think you're right there. I think a lot of these beginner level kit zoom lenses, or even pancake lenses, are slowly but surely disappearing from the native catalogs. Which is unfortunate. And on the other hand, Sigma are making them, like I just said.
Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah.
But I think Sigma still is more or less at the higher end of the lens market at the moment. Affordable high end, I'd say.
No, but on the other hand, you think about it. You know, like. And now looking at the lens categories, obviously slightly different to what we talk about today. We'll talk about cameras, but lens-wise, apart from native people, none of the Chinese people, well, not I wouldn't say none, but majority of the Chinese lens makers don't make zoom lenses. They make prime lenses.
Yeah.
So like when you want to
Yeah.
get a third party zoom lenses, like with any kind of zoom lenses, you're only down to like these days Tamron and Sigma. There are not many that make
Wow.
zoom lenses.
I don't think Tamron's very busy in the APS-C market either, is it?
No.
Um, but the whole thing seems to have escalated. Everyone seems to want to make constant aperture zooms now, whether we want them or can afford them. But you've got, I think I don't think we can say Sigma's done it, but maybe a revival in the APS-C market is because there's a bit more variety in lenses than there was. So I know you've got a couple from Sigma, which are very interesting lenses on APS-C cameras, because for once they're an appropriate size. So you've got I believe the 10-18 2.8.
Yes,
and the 28 to 70 2.8, or is it 28 to 50?
It's
28 to 50 2.8.
It's the 80 to 50 2.8. That's what they call it, APS-C.
8 courses, 18 to 50.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was trying to think of the equivalent.
Yeah, but
I'm
also testing the 16 to 300 millimeters mega zoom lens.
Bit extreme. I'll be interested to see what that's like.
I'll definitely.
So, I think APS-C is looking better now than it did because Sigma's making some quite interesting, decent lenses. You can get those two lenses on Sony E as well. So if you've got an A6100 or 6400, they're a good match for those cameras.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on back to the chart that we talked about earlier, and because I want to continue this. So now we're seeing the Chinese market, and what about the rest of the world, right? Okay, so now we shift back to now the European market. So this is the European market here. I'm gonna just draw this. Oops. So this is Europe, and right next to it is Americans. So if you look at the overall market, and again, the interchangeable lens market in general is literally flatlined, and there's nothing there.
Flat, yeah.
And revenue has gone down ever so slightly as well, but we can call it flat. So there's no growth at all, which is not very good, but not surprising, judging by the whole economical situation that we have in general and the inflation that we have endured for the past few years. And it wouldn't surprise me that the disposable income generally from any family or any people will have kind of be a bit more constrained, so they can't really spend that much on stuff.
Also, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of economic uncertainty, and people are reluctant to commit to kind of discretionary spending when they're not sure how things are going to pan out.
Yeah, and that is certainly another interesting point here. But if you look at the Americans as well, which is actually doing a little bit better than us, but still, I think in terms of format preference, it's still very much on par with the Europeans, right? If you look at just looking at the these two these columns and rows here. So the first one, the top one, obviously is the full frame and above, full frame and medium format, and the one below that is the crop sensor category. It seems like the European and American both still favor a little bit more towards full frame and bigger formats than the crop sensor format. It seems that only the Asians seem to prefer the APS-C more than the than full frame. But if we look at the overall numbers, though, and I think it's pretty much, kind of equivalent to each other. So Americans and also the Europeans, roughly 500,000 units each in terms of full frame shipment. And mirrorless is, again, very, very similar, just over 1 million units, although the Americans slightly more. So there is some growth in terms of the overall market in Americans, but European has gone down when it comes to APS-C or crop sensor camera shipments. It's gone down a little bit. What do you think about that then? Why is the European in particular doesn't favor the APS-C but more on the full frame side?
Oh, it must be camera snobs. Perhaps that's it. I don't know. I think we have to be careful not to overanalyze small variations that could be
Yeah,
caused by things other than technological preferences.
yeah,
These are not huge swings. I think the European preferences seem broadly aligned with the American ones.
yeah,
Um, I think shipments and sales are pretty flat, but I
yeah,
don't think we should be too surprised. I think something needs to happen in this industry
mm,
to to get it going again, or get people looking at photography and cameras in a different way. There's been
yeah.
such a steady. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got a phone call.
Oh
Just bear
no,
with me a moment. Sorry.
I think it's me. Is it not? Oh, I think it was me. Was it you or me?
Not sure what's going on there.
No, I have no
My
idea.
phone is going off, but none of my devices are showing a notification. So who knows? I'm sure if it's important, they'll leave a message.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So it's interesting. Sorry about the disruptions there, but
Yeah, sorry.
uh yeah. So we were on about the European and American. So we broadly aligned with each other in terms of preferences. But I think the whole exercise today, looking at these numbers, clearly show one thing is that the Asian photographers have very different when it comes to gear choice, very different preference compare to the Western worlds.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
at least certainly the growth has shifted in those
Yes.
markets.
Yes, and
Mm.
I mean, I would like to gain everybody's views. I don't know how many of you are from America, how many from Europe, and also how many of you, if any of you, are from Asia. Whether you agree everything that you see so far. I mean, obviously, we talk about numbers here, and also giving our own opinions. You may differ to us slightly, but these are hard fact numbers coming from CIPA. It's certainly very interesting to read about this stuff, even though that I'm not technically an accountant or anybody who are very numeric. But at the same time, looking at this is give us a little pictures about how what sort of gear preferences when it comes to regional preferences from photographers. I really find it quite fascinating, especially coming from format, because that's why today's thumbnail is about the full frame is slowing down. Because from
Mm.
certain regions' point of view, they are slowing down, and it seems like there's a shift of format. People who used to crave for full frame or bigger format, now they seem to be really wanted something slightly smaller, slightly lighter, or whatnot. They just want smaller format. I wouldn't say that they would particularly would argue with the image quality. There's no argument that bigger format tends to yield better image quality. That's physics. But I think now, well, especially for normal photographer, I'm not talking about the really demanding photographers, and I think in general that a lot of the people who buy cameras realizing, that all I ever capture is just some snaps here and there. And when it comes to this sort of high-end analysis of how many dynamic ranges, two more stops on these top-end cameras compared to the just, the lower-end cameras is not going to make too much of a difference for things that they capture. And then if they realize that, they suddenly think that why would I want to spend that much money on a bigger format or having to lug around this bigger format while I can just get something slightly lighter, smaller, while doing essentially the same job and yielding, more importantly, similar sort of picture quality.
I don't know. I don't know whether the audience is sufficiently sophisticated as a whole
Yep.
to understand the technical arguments. I'm wondering if there's something more. It's more of a social shift,
You think
or
so?
maybe an economic shift. I don't know. I think maybe we're reading too much into it to say that the full frame cameras are in decline. But I think there's just a growing realization that the
Hmm.
photography isn't all about having the biggest numbers. I
Yep.
think as well, it's interesting that I have spoken to a number of people who have downsized, and I think this is one of the things with full frame is that you don't quite realize what you're getting yourself into. So that if you, I don't really want to keep coming back to the Lumix S9, but it's a good example. if you buy that with the 80 and the 40 zoom,
Yeah.
it's a very neat little package.
Yeah.
But then you find out that's the only lens you can have. That's that small. All the others are big.
Yeah.
And I think this is a realization a lot of people have with full frame cameras. You can get a Sony A7 and say this is a small camera. It is.
Yeah.
But there aren't very many lenses on it that you can put on it that match those dimensions. It's same with the Nikon. You've got the Nikon ZF, which is a lovely camera with a couple of the Nikon primes.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't really put any of the Nikon zooms on it, would you? Because it just doesn't
feel right. Doesn't feel right. No.
I mean,
so I remember when I first got the ZF, I did get the 70 to 150, not even the 70 to 200 because that's just too big and heavy. But even with the 70 to 150, which is made by Tamron, then even that lens is a little bit too long for the camera. So that type of camera needs a certain type of lenses. It doesn't fit everything, unfortunately.
This is something that I think, I don't know whether people are becoming aware of this, because you had to actually own these systems for some time to start to appreciate that. But I think certainly with APS-C is more size friendly. Yeah. It's partly cost and partly size, because you can get some decent zooms for that format that aren't massive, which is, for anyone who's used to full frame, that's quite refreshing on its own.
I mean, like, even if you look at the Micro Four Third in general, I mean, just trying to get a camera out, the Micro Four Third cameras, there are a lot of small lens choices. I mean, this is what you're talking about, right? I mean, S9 is great in this concept, the small, kind of smallish body, and I wouldn't say small, but smallish body by full frame standard, but it doesn't have any lenses to go with it. You always have to think about, when you buy a camera, you have to buy a lens, and when you buy a lens, it's a package. You need to think about the package size, how big it can be. And Micro Four Third have a ton of these 1.8 little prime lenses. You can get some of these f4 zoom lenses, like this one here. This is the 12 to 45 f4. It is a very small, tiny little zoom for what it is. So if you want a small package, I mean, a crop sensor is always going to win, because it doesn't need a big image circle. So that means that they can make this lens smaller and shorter compared to the full frame equivalent. It just, once again, it's physics, right? The bigger the format, the bigger the hole it needs to allow the light to go through the lens barrel to the sensor. So there's only limited things you can do to make it smaller. So it wouldn't surprise me, but like I said, ultimately it's still down to the photographer whether they need it or not. But I think that you used that word right, is the realization. Now they realize certain things that they didn't realize before when they first bought the cameras a few years back now. And now they use the full frame cameras for a few years. When it comes to upgrade times, or maybe when they think about time to get another camera, they're now no longer looking at full frame cameras perhaps because of things that we just talked about, the size, the weight, the bulk. And also, of course, like I also said earlier, a lot of people maybe just general day-to-day dad or mum, just want to capture some snapshots. And in that case, you really don't need something that sophisticated, that expensive, that big and heavy. All you need just reasonable cameras. If you want to step away from smartphone, for instance, and there are plenty of crop choices that will be easier to carry, easier to use, cheaper, and also lighter.
I think the smartphone comparison is interesting, because with a point and shoot camera, the function is obvious. You look at that thing and you press that button. With your phone, you've got to remember where you left the app, which of your home screens the app is on. Then you have to try and remind yourself, I've actually gone to video or panoramic when I wanted still photography. Then you have to remember what the camera controls do and which way you have to swipe to get the controls. It's not as straightforward as physically as a camera. But yeah, the whole format thing is interesting. I'm quite interested to see how it pans out over a period of time, because with my full frame systems, I have to accept that most of the lenses I want to use are going to make the whole setup quite big. Whereas with my Micro Four Thirds gear, I've got a whole bunch of lenses I can use with the cameras that aren't that big.
No.
So I've kind of got more portable lens choices than I have with full frame. And you also, when you're going out to take some pictures or you've got a shoot to do, you do start to think, do I want to take that one or do I want to take that one? And you look at the size, you think, oh, take that one, take that one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff I do is down sampled for the internet anyway.
Yeah.
So
sure.
the resolution is fine. I don't think I'll ever buy a camera with more than 24 megapixels, unless the market moves on and they're phased out.
I know. I mean, I keep saying that, because people keep asking me that. Because every time when I mention that my agency needed 24, and that's why I went for a different camera system for those kind of jobs. And like to me personally, that's why I always say that if I go out to the street or doing some travel documentary, I'll still take my Micro Four Thirds system because personally I don't need 24. I think 20 is sweet. It's nice. It's nice and small, very light, I would say, but give me enough quality to print. Don't forget I do print my photos as well, and people don't always see that. When you come to printing your photographs, this 16-stop, 14-stop dynamic range doesn't even come into it when you start printing them. And
it doesn't, because the prints have a much lower tonal range.
And because you only see the difference when you view on screen, and also depending on how good your screens are as well. If your screens are not fully calibrated, if your screen doesn't have enough color depth, it doesn't even show them anyway. So there are so many things that we don't talk about, and people may not realize when it comes to a photography. It's good to hear all this 14-bit, 16-bit, 16-stop, 18-stop, all this stuff, nice numbers to talk about. But in reality, when it comes to practicality point of view, a lot of the cases, it doesn't even make sense. You see people used to use these really, by today's standard, very limited sensors technologies, have like only 12-bit colors or 10-bit colors, and they still print. Back in like 15, 20 years ago, when they first kind of get into the DSLR categories, and these photographers still managed to get award-winning shots. They still managed to print books because of these photographs that they capture with this, what we call them now, very primitive technologies. So it shouldn't really let those numbers kind of scare you, or trying to, I need to get 18-stop dynamic range. I need to get 16-bit images. I don't, this and that.
If we're talking about dynamic range, my personal experience is that where I most need dynamic range is in the highlights, because the exposure's just lost me a little bit. I don't see much difference between cameras. You do in the shadows, because a better sensor, you can drag more out the shadows, but that's not something I do so often. But with all of this, you can just bracket your exposures. And if you're using Lightroom or Capture One, you just merge them into a 32-bit GNG file, and you've got a high dynamic range original to work from. It's very straightforward these days, just as long as you don't mind bracketing.
Or if you want to be an old school photographer, just use grad filters.
That too. Or don't take a shot that will never work.
Absolutely.
I wish I could remember that from time to time. But I think, I don't know. I don't know whether what we're seeing in the figures indicates a trend in opinion. I think it's too early to say. But I do think that if photography and cameras are going to thrive in the future, they do need a rethink. We need to get away from this technological leapfrogging and one-upmanship, and try to get back to what people actually buy cameras for. I
mean, I think that it's very different market now when you compare to the olden days. And it's a clear distinction before, though. If you remember the SLR, before the digital thing, all the camera makers, I know even cameras back then were, compared to today's, is very simple. Even with professional cameras, because professional cameras back then we all talk about like how much faster you can shoot, rather than everything that we have now. And but I think that now more features, higher end cameras becoming a dream list compared to what you really need as a photographer. Because back then, like if you want to get into photography, you just want to capture a photo. I think people were a bit more simple-minded back then, and they don't think about, I need this and I need that. They just want something that can expose a photograph. I put film in,
Yeah.
I got a lens, and then that's it. But now,
They would,
yeah, I need to have AI focus. I need to have human subject. I need to have bird tracking. I need to have this tracking.
I think the issue for me, and I'm sure it's not just me, is that every camera upgrade and every new camera pushes the envelope in so many different directions
Yeah.
that many of them will be redundant for what I want to do.
Yep.
So we're being drawn towards very expensive cameras that can do everything, whereas we'd rather have a cheaper camera that just does the thing we want.
Yep. I think we come to that point now, this crossroad. I'm not sure how many of you agree, whether you still think that you need to have that high-end camera that does supposedly everything for you, or you just really want something really simple, just something that you can capture a photograph. I mean, I know that a lot of people like really agree on the OM system or Olympus ethos. They never really got into video, for instance, and that's kind of another thing we talked about many times. And while almost every camera manufacturers are hoping to get something that can do both, right? And then OM system just even bother. Okay, it has some video features, but compared to the rest of the group out there, they don't offer you like a 120 frame 4K. They don't have
the trouble with
internal
video is it's not that you're paying for tech you don't use, because the video capture is so embedded in the whole imaging pipeline you can't separate it. But it's just the extra complexity it adds to the interface.
Yeah.
And user experience, because a hybrid camera is very complex to navigate if you are simply a photographer.
Yep.
That's the annoying thing. You wish you could have a switch. I mean, some do have photography and video switches, but there's still too much stuff in the menus.
Yeah.
That's for video, or for AI autofocus modes for sports photography that you may not be doing. There are too many things to navigate.
Yep.
To get to the thing you want.
Yeah. And it's funny, I'm just reading some comments now, and then John Young was comparing how much you could get back then compared to now.
Yeah, inflation.
I know, 831.39%.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's everything.
And this side towards screen makes the point: do we know our new cameras anymore, or is it nearly impossible to master it? It is. It's a very tedious part of my job, because I had to find out about how this stuff works so I can tell people. But my single most useful piece of advice I always give to people, I think it's most useful, is figure out what you need is and ignore the rest. Just because it's there doesn't mean you have to use it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely true. I mean, like now that I'm using literally 4 different systems, and
welcome to my world.
or professionally 3 systems. I rotate them a little bit, depending on, like I said, like personal stuff, OM system. Some of the work agency stuff I use full frame, or things that with slightly higher megapixels. So I have to kind of rotate different cameras from time to time, and it's certainly very hard to master now that I have to think about, like, every time I change a camera, I have to change my mindset where the things are, where the buttons are, and constantly. Although now I'm getting into routine now, so I'm pretty much know where things are. That tie into what Chuck actually said about Olympus, not with the menu. I actually think the old Olympus menu wasn't that bad. Even some of the older Canon menus or Nikon menus, I now, because I switch different systems from time to time, almost constantly actually, I found that it's a matter of adapting it, because I think that if you use a system for a very long time and you get used to it and you just learn it by heart and you know exactly where things are, and you only notice the difference when you switch to another system. Good or bad, easy or not, I think it's really subjective. I think they all have sub-menu under a page. They all have sub-menu. It's just how you whether it's going to be going horizontally or vertically. They change the orientation a little bit.
I think as well as familiarity. So I know Sony menus were constantly criticised for being complicated. So then they swapped to a newer system. And I hated that because I spent like 3 years learning the old one and now changed it. Thanks for nothing. Thanks for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all what you're familiar with. But my Sony A7's got about 50 menu tabs. So, I probably need about 12 of them. And I have to remember where the 12 ones I need are. And I could put them on my, the special my menu screen. Who's got time for that? Who's got time for that?
Let's go to what they said here. I think that what you said earlier about cameras are really just getting too complicated and unnecessarily complicated. There's just too many different menus here and there, and it's just ridiculous. Sorry, someone's keep beeping me, and I don't know where you can actually hear it. And it's just I find that I really wanted something, maybe perhaps even like Leica cameras. Leicas are very simple, and that's why their menus are simple.
Yeah.
And like, I know we talked about a few times that Leica cameras have this fantastic menu system, very streamlined, very slick, and things like that. And the thing is partly because Leica cameras doesn't have a lot of this complexity that we talked about.
I think DSLR cameras do, but I think Leica works very, very hard on simple design.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you're paying for. So the Leica SLs are basically the same as Panasonic. Mirrorless cameras, but Leica has completely reworked the interface so they don't feel the same at all. But I don't know if you're like me. You go out on a shoot, and between shots, there's only ever about 4 or 5 things you want to change.
Oh yeah.
You've still got to get to them, and it's not always easy to get to them when you've got a camera that does so many things.
Well, for me, I only ever change is the shutter speed and actually the exposure triangle. I don't really change the menu at all.
No. It's still
the only one thing that I really do switch on and off is actually the eye detection or the human detection on and off. That's the only thing I change.
The things I might change would be maybe focus point, maybe ISO, and maybe if there is an extended dynamic range option, I might use that from time to time.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing I like to have accessible. I'm frustrated by my Canon EOS R8 incredibly accomplished camera for the money, but everything's a bit too far away. So if you want to apply EV compensation, it won't do it when the meter's turned itself off. If you want to change a focus point, you have to remember which button to press, then use the D-pad to move it. Everything's just a little bit further away from where I want it. So, that's the case of a very complex camera making things more difficult.
Okay, so let's see another comment here. I'm going to scroll back a little bit because I found some quite interesting one here. Have you heard of SG Optics or SG something? I can't remember. I did look at it. Earlier we talked about small lenses for full frame cameras. Where is that comment? I'm just trying to bring that back in. I think it's Vermis said that. I did look at that lens. Oh, I can't find it now. SG Optics, SG Imaging, SG Imaging. Have you heard of that company before?
Unless they mean Sigma.
No, it's not. It's actually a new company called SG. It's another Chinese lens maker who makes affordable prime lenses. They have recently announced that they're going to make a f2.2 35mm prime that is very small, very tiny for full frame cameras. They're even making one, at least from the image that's been leaked in China already, that they're even making one that it looks like a Nikon old style in AIS lens with kind of aesthetic. It's got a silver rim around it, and it's got a little bit of focusing ring. Very compact body again. So it's interesting because Chinese are making these lenses while others aren't at the moment, even natively. Even Sigma are not really even trying to attempt to make something that small. So it's
Wow.
interesting to see someone is doing something different.
A welcome trend towards simplicity rather than complexity.
Yep.
We've got enough complexity, thank you.
Oh, there you go. There's the SG
Yeah,
image. Yes,
yeah.
never bought from them, but they do decent L mount lenses. I'm interested. Yes, it's funny enough. These guys, whether they're part of the airline alliance or not, but they are making lenses for full frame lenses for Sony L mount and also Nikon Z as well. So
Right.
literally all
How
the
long
full
before
frame.
they're in trouble?
I think they're too small to even be noticed at the moment. But
Yeah.
I think that depending on how Viltrox's cases play out and in the near futures, then we're gonna see what happens to the rest of them.
Yeah. I think the
Yeah,
physical mount probably isn't the issue. It's probably more the electronic communications
yeah,
and
yeah,
feature compatibilities and that kind of thing. But we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
But yeah, a trend towards simplicity would certainly suit me because I think it's what the market needs. But it's whether that's what the market will get is another matter.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess like everyone should. I mean, I hope you listen to the whole thing. If you haven't, I hope that you do go back and see the chart that we have been displaying today.
Mm,
It's interesting to study them. Not necessarily you have to kind of like take it too seriously because a lot of them could be down to a lot of different factors economically, like
mm,
what Rod said. Could be
mm.
political, whatnot. Anything could be part of the reasons why certain things are moving, increase or decrease. But certainly something that we can see is the trend of formats
Mm.
and whether it's temporary because of how do we say that hipster effects people who like the fixed lens cameras or
Yeah.
the format whether we talked about it whether the Asian do prefer something slightly cute and small because and that's causing this the kind of a shift between the full frame and to the crop factor, a crop sensor cameras. Um, I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but certainly it's an interesting thing to see and to witness is that shift happening right now, especially in
Mm.
Asian countries, in China in particular. The demand for full frame actually gone down quite significantly, while the crop sensor cameras are soaring by comparison.
Yeah.
It's not a small change. This is a big change. I mean, something a crop sensor suddenly gone up by 25%, while the full frame has gone down, and that tells something. And it's certainly a very interesting phenomenon.
I think I think it's one of my colleagues on Digital Camera World wrote a story about the most popular camera, biggest seller of all, whether it's B&H or whether it's in the US, was the Canon EOS R100. So
Oh
the
yeah,
cheapest possible RF mount APS-C Canon, technologically 5 years old, so quite
yep,
primitive, but it's cheap and it's small,
yep.
and that's what turns out. That's what people are buying.
Well, I mean, if you look at the every year we talk about these Japanese sales, we more
Mm.
dedicated Japanese sales. You always look at the top 10 and the top 5 camera models. They're always going to be these uh more entry level cameras. They're never going
Yeah,
to be the
yeah.
top flagship cameras.
No, they're not. No,
No,
and you would have thought camera makers would have the brains to figure that out, do something about it, but apparently not.
no. They just only make flagship cameras now,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. They're looking at margins, not numbers. Maybe that's where
No.
they're going wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, like I said, like we said many times in this chat today, camera has become too expensive. Entry level
Yeah,
cameras is the savior in some ways. Like they're cheaper to buy, cheaper to maintain, cheaper
yeah.
to replace. And it just generally makes more sense to normal people. How many of us are pros and
Normal.
enthusiasts, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's put it that way, and I know you and I are more serious photographers. I'm pretty sure people who are
But
listening and commenting are serious photographer, but there are, literally a lot of them, 90% plus people are normal photographer who just want to capture something.
but I think a lot of us here have gone through a similar trajectory. we followed the specs and the upgrades and the improved tech, and we've kind of taken stock and we stepped back a bit. And we thought, actually, no, that was too much. I was fine with what I had before. Or maybe I can downsize a bit because I've gone further than I needed to.
Yeah. John Young said I'm enjoying his new EPL 7.
Yes. Great little camera. Another great
EPL.
camera because it's just a very obvious what it is and how to use it. There's no real airs and graces.
It's an easy camera. That is an easy camera. I mean, I do think OM Systems should bring back the pen series. You know, like it doesn't need to be the Pen F. You can just do the EPL, the whatever.
Yeah, and a few colors.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun camera, like we talked about, right? We need something fun, something easy to live with.
Yeah.
You know, something that don't have to spend like 5 years to learn the menu. Something.
I think the thing is not to try and make it a gender thing.
Yeah.
But where a male audience likes stuff that looks military, they can clip onto webbing and go on an expedition. But a female audience wants something quite cute and pretty that will go in an evening bag or handbag.
Yeah.
And doesn't look like a bit of military ordnance.
No.
So I think I would the pen EPL series should never have gone.
No, I think that is another thing that I think the people who are in charge of the project are a little bit short-sighted at the time. I think you just killed the project a little bit too soon.
Killed it too soon.
Yeah, too soon.
Camera industry is littered with all those cameras we reckon they've killed too soon.
And imagine if they kept that line going, they probably sell a ton of them, because now everyone's wants something like this, something that is portable, something is small.
We realise what's gone.
Yeah.
We want what they used to sell. It's not what they're selling us today.
Yep. Very different. Very different thinking.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yep. And so I think it's time to wrap up today's chat.
Probably
I think we're running a little bit over time, but
we
have enjoyed. we have enjoyed our time together, looking at this, looking at all these numbers actually. And I know it's a bit unusual for us to go through numbers like this, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise, judging because of it tells us quite a few different things altogether. The trends, the different preferences in different regions, and of course the overall market health of the camera industry. I think that's, to me, probably is very encouraging. I mean, regardless of what we talked about.
I think we should start a business. We should buy all the pens we can get, and then have a store that sells only pens.
Call it a pen.
The pen store, yeah.
Call it a pen store, but we don't sell pen in pen sense, but just pen cameras.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
We should think about that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. If we do set up a business like that, remember all of you guys to buy from us and us only. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're in real trouble.
Oh yes, definitely. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, looking at all these boring numbers, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But please do share your thoughts and comments later on if you do have anything that you want to say about what we talked about today, about the format, the preferences, and the global health, or anything you wish to see from camera makers in the next few years, whether it's going to be from OM, Lumix, or whatever, or whatever brand that you use now. What sort of thing you want to see in the near future? Do you want to see more compact cameras, like point and shoot cameras? Do you want to see, something that is just as pure as you can get in terms of the camera? I'm pretty sure what you guys want, but I just want to hear from you guys. But anyway, thanks a lot for your time, and I'm pretty sure Rod's dog is already sleeping, but it looks like he's not moving.
No, it's given up.
It's given up. It's given up.
Now. It's a spreadsheet that did it.
So next time if you want him to keep quiet, we just look at spreadsheets.
Dogs aren't equipped for spreadsheets.
Absolutely fun. Okay, thanks guys, and so I will see you all next time. Okay, and same time, shouldn't be a problem next week. I don't think I have anything else going, and but I do have a few shows to turn up. Tomorrow I'm going to the BCS. If any of you are going to be there, I will be there. And also, just remind you guys before you switch off, is that I still have my link in the description if you want to take advantage of OM Systems cashback deals in the UK. The link will give you extra 10% if you want it, and the deal will run out in 2 days' time, because I think the cashback will run out in the 15th, just the day
15th.
after. Actually, a few more days after Valentine's Day. So remember, if you
don't forget Valentine's Day.
No,
then
buy
if you forget
something.
that, you will be in trouble.
And yeah, just remember that. And I do have a link down there. If you use my code, you'll give you extra 10% in OM Systems online store. So just a bit of extra saving for you guys. That's on top of the cashback you can claim from them. So yep, have a look. If not, and good luck. And also have a happy week. Yep, I'll see you all next time.
See you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.